On to the next project, and I'm going to make a table for my drill press. I've had this Bosch PBD 40 for nearly a year now, about 11 months, and I like it so much more than my previous one. I used to have a Shepak one from Aldi, and on paper is very similar. It's the same style of drill press, tabletop one, drill moves up and down, it's got the same sort of clamp and everything, but I just hated it, and I actively would avoid using that thing. Whereas this, I've used it, you know, 10 times, 20 times more than I ever used the other one, just in the last 11 months. And I've been getting on fine. I quite like this little fence, you know, it works quite well here and everything, but I think I can do better. I actually quite like this clamp thing here, but it does, obviously, being connected to this column, it does mean I'm going to have to think about what I do with the fence. And I was thinking, if I have a solid fence, which most of the drill press table videos on YouTube have, most of those videos, they've got the old style, well, I say old style, the kind of normal style drill press, which is where the table moves up and down and the drill unit stays where it is, whereas with this one it moves like this. You can see there the actual, this moves up and down and the table stays where it is. So most of those other videos it's different, and most people don't have this kind of central clamp that's fixed to the column. What I'm going to do is do a split fence. I've seen Chris from the Get Hands Dirty channel, again Chris, hope you don't mind me using your name, don't know who you are, did a split fence, and I thought that's quite good. And it's, you know, whilst it's marginally more faff fixing it in place, you've got a piece of wood, you've got to tighten down 4 toggle clips instead of 2. I think that's going to work better for me because it means I can still use that clamp and use the fence on the table I'm going to make. So I don't have a strong idea in my head. I'm going to kind of make this up as I go along. The only thing I know is I'm going to use, I've already got the Matchfit system, so I'm going to use that because I've been using these clamps, these kind of trigger clamps, which are great, I really like them. But I recently bought some of these just because they've got a slightly deeper capacity for clamping. Just gives me some more options. And these came with a little bag of the hardware, so the little kind of things that can slide in the Matchfit grooves. So I'll use those for the clamping, and I will make out of this piece of melamine faced MDF. This was free in the offcut section of my local B&Q in their bin. It's pretty heavy. You can see it's got damage on it. Obviously I'll cut that away. It's already got a cutout on it there as well, which is bigger than I need for this column here, but there's no point doing another cutout and cutting that wood away. I'll use that. So I'll keep that cut out, make that the bit that goes around the column, obviously cut it a little bit shorter, and then make the fence out of this too, hopefully, if I've got enough material. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut it down. I don't need that much depth on it, but I will try and keep as much width as possible, I think. And then hopefully I'll have enough here to make the fence pieces out of this strip that I cut off. Oh, I can hear a cat meowing already. Go and let a cat in. Come on, Jemima. Come on. There we go, it's Jemima again. What a surprise. The main #1 nuisance. Yeah, so I'm going to cut this down, and I think, because I need to use the router table for the Matchfit grooves, and also I'm going to put a little chamfer around the edge, and also I need to router out like an insert plate for underneath where the drill bit goes. All of that stuff, the flat work, let's call it, I need to do. I think it's going to be easier to do while this is a flat piece of wood. So before I put any like little supports on the sides or anything like that, I'm going to do it all while this is one flat bit of wood. Oh, and I'm going to attach it to that thing with the same bolts, well, very similar bolts to the one, the little fence that goes on there. This existing one just attaches with these square bolts that run in these grooves. So I'm basically going to use the same thing to attach that one, but I won't be able to use these thumb wheels because I won't have enough space. There's the cut piece just resting on the metal bed. It's going to be a good size, that. I'm just going to cut away some of these damaged bits, and because this is the edge that I cut with the track saw just now, I'll stay square to that edge and square up the edges. Not that it massively matters for a drill press table, but still. So I've got my bolts in, obviously counterboard down, recessed into the thing, going through underneath. What I'd like to do now though is put some kind of something along there to register against the, hang on, to register against the front of that, so that when I slide this up every time prior to tightening the bolts down, it kind of sits true, square, I suppose, to the base of the thing. I can't permanently fix anything because, like I say, I need to do all the flat work with that as a flat piece of wood, so I can't permanently fix a little bit of wood there. But I'm thinking what I might do for now is just domino it, and then I can remove it, like dry fit it with dominoes and remove it as and when needed. What's very annoying, of course, is that to get the bit that's going to go flat up against here, as I was just saying, and register against there, I'm going to have to rip some strips of wood that are precisely that distance from the underside of there down to there, to sit against there, but also obviously connect to the base in order to provide support. I suppose I could deliberately do it shorter, but then I wouldn't get the additional support, and I want to make some pieces to connect on the edges anyway for support, so I might as well do that rip at the same time. It would be great, wouldn't it, if Bosch had made this a nice kind of round number. Unfortunately, that distance down from the bed to the, the floor, the base is, well, 30.68. I measured it just now and it was 30.8, so maybe I need to work on my measuring, but it would be nice if it was like 36, so it was exactly 2 lots of 18mm material, or 30 exactly, and then it would be an 18 and a 12 you could stack together and get it. But no, it's 30.68 or 30.82 depending on which measurement I go with. So yeah, I'm just going to have to creep up on it on the table saw, I think. Well, check out this little bit of serendipity. So this is the Evolution R255 TBL Plus, catchy name. This little thin rip thing, which you can put down here to do thin rips, is also an awkward measurement. And guess what? It's almost exactly 30.8. Almost exactly the same awkward measurement as the distance of the base on the Bosch PBD 40. So I think what I can probably do, if I take the hood off and I use the shorter riving knife and I use my micro jig gripper thing for going over it, I can basically use this as a spacer to position the fence without that exactly the right distance. So let's see if it works. So there you go. If you've got a Bosch PBD 40, you want to make a base, a drill press table base for it, and you also happen to have the same table saw as me, that's a pretty niche bit of info, isn't it? But maybe it's useful to you. Certainly useful to me today. Oh, would you look at that? Beautiful. Slides under freely, but look, if I put a tiny bit of downward pressure on, can you hear it catching? Well, I can feel it anyway, like this. So that's a perfect fit. Listen, I'm not going to pretend it was first time. It wasn't. The first time was very slightly too big and I had to sneak up on it with a couple of passes, but yeah, perfect. So now I'm going to run all of my pieces through. I'm going to have one at the front here that registers against that. I'm going to have another one back here for support, and then I'm going to have one at each side. So I need 4 pieces like this, really. Beautiful, very happy with that. So yeah, if you've got the same drill press as me and the same table saw as me, then give that a go. Okay, so I've just done all the dominoes. I've deliberately set the mortises inbound from the edge because I wanted to have these sit about 20mm in, just to give me a lip around the edge if I ever wanted to clamp anything on this near the edge, then I've got that lip there. If this was sitting right on the edge, then it's a bit more tricky to clamp, and obviously you don't really lose any support from doing that. Annoyingly, I did get my calculations a bit wrong with this, so I've had to pin some 6mm board on the front of this just to make it thick enough to bear against this front edge here so that I've got a registration to push up against, because without it, this bit was hitting the column at the back before this was contacting. So hey ho, it's ugly, but you won't see it, it'll be underneath. Never mind. Right, what is next? Get the dominoes glued in and do a dry fit. When I say glued in, I glue the dominoes into the edge mortises. I don't glue them into these bits at the same time. I do that full glue up later. Plus, at the moment, I still need to be able to remove these. And of course, I've made a blindingly stupid mistake in that when I've pinned this bit on here, I fired nails directly through the mortise holes, directly through the domino holes, preventing the thing. So I've had to bash them with a hammer, obviously split the MDF and get it in there. So now I'll have to glue and clamp that together. Idiotic mistake. Wouldn't even have happened if I'd got the measurements right in the first place. So absolutely stupid. Right, the next step is to sort out my insert plate, the kind of removable bit that's going to go under where the actual drill bit goes. I've got a load of scraps of 6mm MDF, so I'm going to use these. I'm going to cut these down to size first. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that should last me a good long while, because I'm planning for them to be eccentric, so you can use all 4 corners by moving it around. And then it's routing the hollow for them, which I'm really not looking forward to. Part of the reason I'm doing a good amount is because I was worried that if I route it and get it perfect for these, you know, what if in future I'm replacing one of these and, you know, this is 5.9mm MDF and in the future I buy 6.2mm MDF and now it's sitting proud and I've got to get the router out again, and then what if I buy one in future that's thinner and it sits under the surface? So ideally I'd love to have, you know, micro adjusters. That's a little bit overkill. With my router table, I just put screws in the corners, but that's fine because there's nothing under that table. Whereas I wouldn't want screws to protrude through the 18mm melamine. So I think just do myself enough to last me a good long while is basically the answer here. So I'm going to cut these first, and then when I come to route them, I'm going to butt up my router guides around the edge so that I get it almost exact. So run these through the table saw and then use a stop block on the miter saw to get them all exactly the same size so that I can use them as templates. Okay, so all those support pieces underneath are all just dry fitted with dominoes at the moment, so they're totally removable, so I can carry on doing all my routing and bits. I got all of my little insert plates cut last night. I took off one corner so they're easy to remove. It's 100 by 90. I would have done 100 by 100, but these were already 90 on their smallest dimension, so I've done 100 by 90. What I want to do is have these positioned so that the drill goes into a corner, and then I can do some drilling, blah, blah, blah. When this corner wears out, I can flip it around that way, wear that corner out, flip it over, wear that corner out. And the reason I've made these the size they are is because I want to be able, my largest Forstner bit is 40 mils, and I'd like to be able to do a 40mm hole and still have enough support around the edges so that this plate is supported underneath. By the way, I'm going to drill a 40mm Forstner hole through this, but I'm going to do that towards the end, or, you know, before I just do the routing, because I want to use a smaller hole for lining things up to start with. Anyway, sorry, I'd like to be able to use a large Forstner bit on this. I mean, I probably won't. If I'm doing Forstner stuff, I will probably have a support piece under it, to be perfectly honest with you. But just in case I ever need to. 40mm Forstner hole, enough support around the edge, and to still be able to use the opposite corner. Obviously, I can't do a 40mm Forstner hole there and a 40mm Forstner hole there. I'm not going to have room for that. But I could do a 40mm Forstner hole, and then if I wanted to flip it over and use that for, you know, 4mm screw holes or something, then I've still got the usefulness of all 4 corners. So now I've just got to do a bit of measuring. It's one of those things that's just going to take me an annoyingly long time. I know it is, of just sitting here scratching my head, so I'm not going to film that bit. All right, I'm not going to tell you how long it took me to get all this marked out, measured out. It was far too long. Anyway, and get all these templates stuck down for the router. A little bit of wiggle room in there. I used a couple of cards on each side, or one of each side sort of thing. One that side, one there, just to give it a tiny bit of wiggle room. I'm going to be using a bearing guided router bit, which is why my template goes all the way up to the edge. I'm not using a bushing or whatever they're called, so I'm not set back from the edge like some people might be, depending on what sort of method you use. So yeah, I'm going to route it. I'm going to err on the side of routing it a little bit too deep rather than too shallow, because I would rather, you know, if the thing sits below the surface, that's less of a problem, and I can always shim it up with a bit of tape on the edges if I need to. If it sits above the surface, obviously that's going to be a problem for every single hole I try and drill. So yeah, I'm going to go tight. When I talk about a bit deeper, I'm not talking like not even a millimetre, you know, just a hair deeper sort of thing. So yeah, this is the bit I'm not looking forward to really, but here we go. Well, there we are. One mistake here. That was pretty much within 3 seconds of turning the router on. I went over to this edge, this corner, and immediately could feel it sinking into the wood. You know, literally that sinking feeling where the bearing, it wasn't low, and the bearing wasn't low enough to contact the guide. Went into the sides of the 12mm ply I had around there. But the rest of it's fine. I've got this 4 layers of tape is the correct amount to bring it perfectly flush. So there we go, 4 layers of tape isn't going to break the bank, I don't think. I'm happy with that. So yeah, obviously I've got these rounded corners, so I've got this Trend corner chisel. It was like an Amazon Prime deal. It's literally just arrived today, so I'm just going to give it a go and see how well that works. Meh, it was all right for getting in the ballpark, but still had to clean it up with the chisel a little bit. Right, now I'm going to drill my 40mm forcing a hole through there. Decided that because I've got a bunch of these to last me a while, it probably made sense to stick the tape to the bottom of the recess rather than the back of those. So even though it would have been easier to add 4 layers of tape to the back of that rather than faff about cutting around this hole and stuff with 4 different layers, I haven't got to worry about it every single time I change a plate out now. And what I'm thinking of doing with these, by the way, is rather than just using one plate until it's completely worn out and then throwing it away, you know, when I do, I might make a series of like holes of different sizes, like, you know, 2.5mm, 3mm, 3.5, 4, write on them what the sizes are, and then use the, if I'm doing a lot of one size a hole, I've got a kind of pre-made plate that will support the underneath and hopefully stop a bit of blowout. Right, excuse mess. So I'm making my fences, and the fence is basically going to be an L-shaped piece of wood like that, a straight up and down piece and then a piece at the back. This piece at the back is going to have some slots in it so that that runs in the Matchfit grooves. This upright post obviously needs to go in those slots, and they need to be quite long so that it can move around a variety of ways. Plus I'm going to need to be able to move it sideways to move it out of the way of that central clamp. Oops. And these posts, oh, by the way, I'm loving these little tiny Veritas squares. It's very handy. It's only like less than a tenner. Anyway. What was I saying? Yes, this post, it's Imperial, it's like 4.86mm, so a 5mm slot would be perfect for along here. Annoyingly, I don't have a 5mm router cutter, and I was scratching my head thinking, oh, should I buy a 5mm router cutter? Can I do it by just drilling a load of holes? Don't really want to do that, to be honest with you. And then I realised the Domino has a 5mm cutter in it. And what I could probably do if I just go along is cut slots. So I did a little test. Cut a slot along there. Obviously I'll have to come in from both sides, so I'll have to come in from the other side to pierce through, but that shouldn't be a problem. So I've marked out this piece of wood before I cut it, because once I cut the thin strip, it's going to be really hard to get the balance the Domino on it. So I'm doing it now while it's one piece of wood before I run it through the table saw. So yeah, let's see how this goes. You know what, that's not too bad. I did have to run a file along a little bit just to open them up properly, but yeah, little Matchfit hardware runs in those, no problem. So now I just need to get that on the table so I rip it off. Obviously the finish on the melamine isn't great, as you can see. It's chipped out quite a lot, but to be honest, I think that probably would have happened with the router anyway if I'd been doing it the other way. So yeah, that's worked quite well. That only took about 20 minutes. Lovely. Oh, it's chilly in here today. It's only early October, but still. Anyway, last night I finished off these fences that you can see here. It was in a bit of a hurry, so I didn't film anything, but obviously this bit is where I made the groove with the domino, and then I've connected these two bits together with dominoes that go through there, 3 dominoes. I had to be pretty careful because there's not very much plunge depth there, and in fact I did manage to pierce through into the slot with one of the dominoes when I was tapping it in with a hammer. Thankfully, just going in there with a screwdriver and sort of gently nudging it back into its mortise worked, so the slots are free of obstructions and they work. And annoyingly, I must not have been plunging properly at 90 degrees into in here with the domino, because this fence, you can see it's kind of like an L shape. It was very slightly like that, so it was kind of rocking backwards and forwards a little bit. And when you push down on this bit, because obviously the Matchfit bits that hold it down will hold that flat down, it wasn't quite at 90 degrees, annoyingly. So I kind of scratched my head about how to do it. I was thinking, oh, can I sand it? Can't really plane it because it's MDF. And then I realised that I trust my table saw to be at 90 degrees because I only got it recently and I set it up not that long ago, a couple of months ago. So what I did is I put the flat face, this is the face that's going to be the fence. I put that face down on the table saw and ran it through, well, I ran it through that way, so that the blade would slice this at exactly 90. So you can see I've taken the melamine off of the, or melamine off of the bottom in doing so, but obviously that's fine, doesn't make a difference. And that's worked. It was quite, I had to have the blade quite high, but I still was able to keep the crown guard on. So anyway, today's jobs are routing this thing. Got to route the Matchfit grooves, and I've got to put the chamfer around the edge. Alright, routing's all done. I fitted the little green Matchfit hardware. They're all sliding nicely in the grooves. I'm going to turn it that way, move it across, move it into the middle. Okay, I say they're sliding nicely and that one embarrasses me. Obviously you can move them so they meet in the middle, you can move them out of the way to use that clamp. Turn them diagonal if you wanted to. Got these little stops that slide in and out. And I fitted these little blocks on the back just to keep them level along the top of the thing. Checked it with a square and they are square. So the next thing is to refit all the little support pieces underneath and the bit that bears against the front of the thing, and that'll be the last step really, and then I can fit it. So, in the words of the great James Wright, there you have it. It's all done. Bolted down, all the support pieces underneath are there. Screwed in from the top, dominated in from the bottom. The fences all work, slide it out nicely. Got my end stops, which I can slide in. Obviously the fence can be moved out of the way to accommodate this clamp, or I can just lift up the clamp, move it around the back, slide the fences in to meet each other. Obviously if I'm working on a piece and I do want to use both fences, I will have to kind of, you know, do one first and then put the piece up against it, align it. So a bit more of a faff than if I was using just one fence, but I think it's a small price to pay to be able to keep using this clamp. I would imagine if I move one fence across, it goes past the drill bit there. So I imagine one fence on its own will be enough a fair amount of the time. I can also go further back than I used to be able to with the built fence that was on the thing, because I can go all the way back to nearly to the pillar there. So yeah, all in all, very happy with that. Got 5 spare thingies here, so I think I probably will do what I said and drill out some with particular hole diameters. It's not exactly difficult to flip it, put it down, so you know, having a bunch of different hole diameters to prevent blowout will probably be quite a helpful thing, I would think. So yeah, very, very happy. You know, hopefully that might help someone else thinking of doing a proper drill press table for the PBD 40 maybe. Give you some ideas perhaps. Thanks very much for watching.